Today, we're going to talk about something that happens quietly behind closed doors, but affects millions of people. It's a powerful dynamic I'm calling the apathy burnout vortex. It's this vicious cycle that can start with one person's medical symptom and end up dragging two people's quality of life down with it. So let's break down how this whole thing works.
This quote, wow, it's from someone living with Parkinson's disease, and it just perfectly and chillingly captures where this vortex can lead. It's about this slow, quiet withdrawal from the world. Every time you say no to seeing a friend or trying a hobby, it's like another door just locks behind you. And before you know it, you're all alone in that dark room. So, to really get a handle on this vortex, we first have to understand what's actually going on inside that room, what's causing all those doors to lock in the first place. Well, the force that's locking those doors is often apathy. And this is so important to understand. This is not laziness. It is not a choice or a character flaw. We're talking about a clinical neurological symptom. The brain is literally changing. Apathy is a loss of motivation, a shutdown of the very drive to do things with a purpose. And this isn't some rare fringe symptom, not at all. In fact, estimates show that apathy affects somewhere between 40 and a jaw-dropping 70% of people with Parkinson's. Just think about that. For millions of people, that fundamental spark to do something is being snuffed out by the disease itself. It's a huge hidden crisis. So what's happening in the brain to cause this? Well, you can think of it like a circuit failure. The brain's reward system, which runs on dopamine, just isn't working right. So things that used to bring joy or a sense of accomplishment don't deliver that same chemical reward anymore. The brain literally can't do the math. It can't weigh the effort of doing something against a reward it no longer feels. And the result? Motivation just flatlines. It's not a case of, I won't. It becomes a case of, I can't. Okay, so we've got one person struggling with the biology of I can't. But remember, this is a story about two people. So now, let's bring in the second person in this story, the one who's often completely overlooked, the caregiver. Look at this number, 56 million. That is how many older adults in the US right now need support to live their lives. And that number is set to explode to 95 million by 2060. And who's providing the overwhelming majority of this care? It's not doctors or nurses. It's spouses, children, friends, what we call informal caregivers. The sheer scale of this is just staggering. And taking on this role, as you can imagine, comes with a hidden toll. Study after study shows the same thing. Caregivers have significantly higher rates of depression and what's known as caregiver burden when you compare them to people who aren't caregivers. They're shouldering an immense weight, and it has a very real, very measurable effect on their own health. Let's put some hard numbers on that. Now, this data is specifically for caregivers of people with dementia, but it tells a powerful story. About half of them report feeling a moderate to severe burden. And a full third, 1 out of 3, reports symptoms of depression. This isn't just an idea. It's the daily reality for millions of people who are just trying to help someone they love. And this is where the two stories collide. You have the patient pulling back because of apathy, and you have the caregiver pushing forward, taking on more and more. This interaction is the engine of the burnout vortex. It's where everything starts to spiral. This is really the heart of it, a simple but unavoidable truth. When the person with the illness stops being able to start things, to make dinner, to call for a prescription refill, to even just get up and go for a walk, someone else has to pick up the slack. For every action that apathy takes away from one person, an action has to be added to the other's plate. And here's what that looks like day to day. It's the little things that pile up. The patient struggles to start basic tasks. They pull away from friends. Maybe they even have trouble remembering to take their medication, which just makes everything worse. And all of this requires the caregiver to step in, to push, to remind, to do everything. And here you can see the cycle laid out step by step. This is the vortex. Step 1, the patient withdraws because of apathy. Step 2, the caregiver, out of love and necessity, overcompensates. They take it all on. Step 3, that caregiver hits a wall. They burn out, they get depressed. And then, the final, tragic step, the quality of life for both of them goes down. See how that works? Each person's struggle is now directly making the other's worse. But here's the thing about a vortex. Once you see how it works, you can figure out how to stop it. It doesn't have to be the final destination. So the big question is, how do you break a cycle that involves two people? Well, the answer has to be two-sided. You can't solve this by just focusing on one person.
For the patient, we have treatments that can target apathy, things like medications, brain stimulation, even intense exercise. But, and this is a huge but, that's only half the battle. We have to support the caregiver with tools that are proven to work, like therapy, mindfulness, and just connecting with others who get it in support groups.
You know, this really gets at a much bigger idea about how we need to think about healthcare. It's not enough to just treat the disease. We have to treat the people. This quote says it all, really. Real progress, real healing, it happens when we respect both the hard science of what's happening in the brain and the messy, human, lived experience of both the person who is sick and the person who's caring for them.
So I just want to leave you with this question to think about. We usually think of a cure as something that targets one patient, right? A pill, a surgery. But for these diseases that are so tangled up in our relationships, what if the path to helping one person actually begins with caring for both of them? What could change if we stopped seeing them as a patient and a helper and started seeing them as a single unit that needs to be supported together?